I'm a black man in a white world.
Right.
And you always got to be 150% better. Don't let the stuff fool you.
Okay.
You know, the minute that you think that, oh, I made it, I'm content, that's the minute that they'll drop the bomb on you.
This is a journey.
Let me take you on a journey.
There will still be
The journey. The journey.
New sheriff in town, and his name is
The journey.
Journey.
This thing is bigger than Nino Brown. This is
The journey. The journey.
What is it that moved you?
The journey. The journey. The journey. The journey.
Welcome back to another edition of The Journey. I'm your host, Larry Robinson, and today we have an amazing Memphis icon, one that I think you're going to love their story. But before we get to him, let me give you a quote. This quote kind of goes something like this. Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. That comes from Robert Louis Stevenson, a writer. But why is it important for this conversation? The brother that I got sitting next to me has planted so many seeds, he could be a farmer. Today we have Willie Gregory, straight out of South Memphis, graduate of Booker T. Washington and Mississippi Valley State University, member of several boards. I ain't even gonna try to name all the boards he's a part of. Been named Man of the Year, Person of the Year so many times, he can't even count. He doesn't even have room for the trophies. He is the personification of repping your city. Brother Willie Gregory, welcome to The Journey.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you
man.
inviting me.
Man, absolutely. We couldn't do it without you. Now, this has been a mentor of mine, y'all, so please forgive me if I get a little choked up, because he means that much to me. So listen, Willie, we're going to start out early. Tell us about that early neighborhood where you grew up and you know, that type.
As you said, fresh out of South Memphis.
Okay.
Zip code 38126.
Ooh.
Raised in the Claiborne Homes housing development.
Okay.
Attended the Booker T. Washington
The
High
Booker
School.
T. Washington.
Yeah, you know, we were only one of the few schools in the city, black schools, that had their own stadium.
Really?
I think Melrose got one in the later years.
Now let me ask you this real quick in the midst of Booker T. Washington. Was it the first black school for blacks, or were there other schools that came along with as the same era of Booker T. Washington?
Yeah, that was Manassas.
Okay.
You know, Booker Washington was for South Memphis. Manassas was for North Memphis.
Okay.
But we had our own stadium.
Wow.
And our motto was, we're tops, we lead, and others follow.
All right.
So that pride was instilled in us at an early age.
Right.
I grew up in the Claiborne home where you had next door neighbors. If you know, you never ran out of sugar because you could go next door and borrow sugar. Although my mother detested that. You better not go borrow no sugar. You better drink your coffee dark if you know unsweetened if you need it. So it was a heck of an experience. Living in South.
Let me ask you this: who outside of your parents had the greatest impact on you?
My church.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody in particular?
Yeah, I would say that a guy by the name of Clarence Cole, who was in my church. I used to call him Daddy Cole.
Okay. Why Clarence?
He was the chairman of the finance committee.
Okay.
And I'm chairman of my finance committee in my church now.
Oh, wow.
And in the early years when church was over with, and I wanted to stand outside and talk, he and this lady named Gussie Sweet would come and get me and bring me down in the finance room. And they taught me everything about church finances. And what they did was taught me everything about church finances and merged my schooling on finance together.
Okay.
And so once he got ready to retire, I remember he said, "Hey, Bill, I'm finna go to the house." And I just thought he meant he was leaving.
Okay.
But what he meant was, I'm turning this chairmanship over to you now.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so there were a number of
shoes
people.
To fill.
Yeah, there were a number of people there. I'm from a single parent household.
Okay.
But if I could be half the man my mom was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I had a mom like that.
Yeah.
My mom didn't take no stuff.
Didn't take nothing. And so it was a whole community. When you look at me, that quote about it takes a village to raise a kid.
Right.
I'm that kid.
Okay.
You know, it was my church. It was my coaches. It was the people in the neighborhood. So I said Clarence Cole stood out, but there were a number of people. William Woodruff
Okay.
longtime coach at Carver High School.
Okay.
J.B. Payton, longtime coach at Mitchell High. They were all members of my church.
Right.
And so when I kind of acted up, not that my mom needed to, but she kind of snitched on me on Sundays.
Oh.
And I'd get jacked up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so what decision did you make as a young person that ended up being sort of life-altering, although you didn't know it at the time?
I made the decision that there was another side of the world I lived in, and I wanted to see it.
Okay. And unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, well, it comes down to I wanted to see more than South Memphis.
Okay.
I had to figure out what I could do to see more than South Memphis.
Okay.
A turning point is I was on the football team, I was a quarterback, but I wasn't very good.
Okay.
And so there was a sophomore that came, ran me out, but I said, hey, what can I do to contribute to the team?
Right.
And I became a punter.
Okay.
Well, as I became a punter, that's what got
The
me
great
to
Willie
Mississippi
G was a
Valley.
punter.
Then that's all I did. You can look at me now and tell I couldn't take many licks.
Right.
But that was a big component of a football team, and that was my contribution.
How different are you from the person you dreamed you would be as a child?
Not much.
Really?
Yeah. I always wanted to be a person that helped other people.
Okay.
You know, I've never wanted to be king,
Okay.
but I didn't mind being the king maker.
Wow. Okay. And you are truly that, a
Yeah.
king maker. Okay. Okay. When did you know in your life that you was going to be okay? At what point you said, you know, I got this. I think I'm going to be all right.
Wow, Larry, that's a tough question because I never think that I've made it. I always think that I'm still struggling and climbing that mountain.
Wait a
you
minute.
know?
All these people look up to the great Willie G and all that you do for the company you work for, and you still in the grind?
The old saying, every morning I wake up, it's that lion and gazelle theory.
Okay.
If the lion catch me, he gonna eat me up. If I don't outrun like a gazelle, I'm gonna starve.
Wow.
And so I never feel comfortable. And I'm a black man.
Right.
I'm a black man in a white world.
Right.
And you always gotta be 150% better. Don't let the stuff fool you.
Okay.
You know, the minute that you think that, oh, I made it, I'm content, that's the minute that they'll drop the bomb on you.
Absolutely. What's your why, Willie? What gets you up every day?
I got a passion for what I do.
Okay.
You know, I was just telling Glenn Sesson in there, I don't think I've ever had a job. You know, I had one job at IRS that I absolutely hated.
Okay.
I had to be there at 6 o'clock. I couldn't leave till 2. You had 30 minutes for lunch, and that meant walking from your desk to the cafeteria and back. And I almost went crazy.
I bet. I bet.
So I've never had a job that I've had to punch a clock, but I've always had a job that I made a difference.
All right. So this is the last question of this segment. Let me see how I make sure and do it and do it justice. Tell us about the time that you realized unequivocally that you were a black man.
Probably from the
Hold
time.
on for a second. Listen, we're going to come right back on the journey. And the great Willie Gregory is going to tell you the time that he realized he was a brother. We'll be right back after this on the journey on the KUDZUKIAN Network. Don't go nowhere. I'm coming looking for you if you do.
KUDZUKIAN.
Is based in Memphis, but it is international.
A new building, an expanded team, new equipment, a new studio, all inside of 7 years.
The resources that we were able to utilize with KUDZUKIAN and their team has been incredible. And our partners at KUDZUKIAN has been a large part of our success.
One, it's black owned. So we get to tell our own stories in our own way. I'm so proud of the founder, Larry Robinson, and his entire family and all of the team here at KUDZUKIAN.
We are so proud of their progress that they've made here in Memphis.
With social media and the technology we have today, The world is listening.
KUDZUKIAN. Check out all your KUDZUKIAN favorites now. Download the KUDZUKIAN app, available on Android and iOS.
Welcome back to The Journey. As I said, we have another cold one here, a Memphis icon that definitely you want to hear every single word they have to say. We have the great Willie Gregory, who is what I said, personification of repping your city. There's no bigger advocate for Memphis than this brother right here. So Willie, before we left, I was asking you, when was that moment that you realized unequivocally that you was a brother?
You know, Larry, that was not a moment.
Really?
I grew up knowing I was black. My mom was very political. She was a member of the Shelby County Democratic Club back during the days, and I'm going to date myself, and some people may know this guy's name, Frank Kilpatrick, Russell Sugarman. Yeah. They had an office up on Macklemore, the Shelby County Democratic Club office. I grew up knowing I was black. We would go, when we went to the movies, what is now the Orpheum, used to be the Malco. Black people had to go in the side door. We could not go in the front door.
In Memphis, Tennessee? In
Memphis, Tennessee. I knew I was black.
What year was that?
This was 1960, 59, 60. I was 9, 10 years old, so I just told my age.
So you just growing up, you were growing up in the midst of the civil rights era.
Oh, yeah, in the heart of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've carried signs, you know, in front of Pickett and Goldsmiths.
Quick question. I know we're going to get back to some of these other questions, but what was it like to have so many of your heroes killed during your time? You know, everybody, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, all of them kind of died in that same era of time. As a black man, as a black child, did you feel any of that?
What I felt was we had to carry on what they had taught us.
Right.
That we had to step up.
Okay.
You know, what is the next man up?
Right.
I mean, you know, they killed Malcolm, and there's an old saying that said you can kill the dreamer, but you can't kill the dream.
Right, right.
And so back then we were aware. Okay. Much aware. Our parents tell us the story. We saw the story.
Right.
It was the first time that Birmingham, they showed on national TV because people wanted to register to vote.
Right.
They got dogs turned loose on them. They had fire hose put on them.
Right.
Just because they wanted to vote. Everybody back then looked at TV. CBS, NBC, and ABC were your only ones.
Right.
So I knew early on that I was black.
Right.
But I also had it instilled in me is that you got to do things a lot different from everybody else.
Right.
I told you earlier, 150%.
Absolutely.
You know, you got to go.
Right.
You know, if you want to do it, you got to do it.
Right.
The churches was responsible for a lot of my confidence. You get up in church to say your Easter speech, and you better have that Easter speech right.
Right, you better be right.
So when I got out to publicly speak, it wasn't a big deal for me.
Right.
You know,
right.
I went to Booker T. Washington where they insisted that we speak with the King's English.
Okay.
Now, you know, I speak 2 languages.
Right.
I speak the King's English, and then I speak the brothers' English.
Yeah, we definitely bilingual.
We know that you're black.
Right.
You know, because nobody else has to do that.
Right.
When we got our books at Booker T. Washington, they came from Central High School. Now, here's the ironic part. Central High School was the first black public white school. Their colors are what? Gold and green.
Yeah.
They are the who? Warriors.
Right.
Booker Washington, first black school, our colors are what? Gold and green. We got our own stadium. Central had their own stadium.
Truly separate.
Truly separate.
Definitely not equal, but
definitely
separate.
Not equal, but we made it equal.
Right, right.
So I always knew I was black.
Okay. Okay, we're going to rewind a little bit and go back to your childhood, family life. Tell me about that home life. Brothers, sisters?
No, I'm an only child.
You an only child?
Yeah, I'm an only child by my mother. Now, you know my dad is a little different.
They wasn't making protection back then.
Yeah. So my mother went and got my grandparents from Holly Springs, Mississippi, and brought them to live with us.
Okay.
So I had the gift of living with my grandfather and my grandmother.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I mean a gift.
Okay.
And you talk about laying wisdom down every day.
Right.
And I still quote him every day.
Give us one.
show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Back then, your friends used to come to your house, and your parents met your friends and stuff.
Right.
So they could see who you were rolling with.
Right.
And what's the first thing they'd say? Boy, who is your folk?
Yeah, you're right. I know your mama.
Yeah.
I know your daddy.
Yeah. So everybody carried the name of their family.
Right.
And what did they used to tell you? Boy, all I got is my name. Don't mess it up.
Okay.
And I still told my sons that.
Right.
That's all I got is my name. Don't mess the Gregory name up.
Right.
I've done everything I can to make it worthwhile. Don't you mess it up.
What's a fond memory of back then?
Sitting on the porch talking to my grandfather. Just,
Oh, yeah?
You know, before they came to live with us, I used to go down to Mississippi every summer.
Okay.
And once he came out the field, you know,
Was he sharecropping?
Yes, he was sharecropping. Yeah.
So you know what sharecropping actually looks like.
Absolutely. I mean, I know what it is to go down to the barn to get the milk that he milked from the cow and bring it back to my grandmother and sit in the corner and churn it, and then she'd take the butter off the top and fix breakfast, and to go to the field with him.
I told y'all, we got some stuff that you ain't never gonna hear
I actually know
anywhere
about
else.
that.
This is the journey. So tell us about a horrible memory. One of those memories, it could be a butt whooping or anything, but one of those memories that kind of stick out to you back in that day.
I cut school one day. I went to Alonzo Locke. And my 5th grade teacher, her name was Dolores Payton. And I cut school, you know, me and the boys. We didn't have nothing to do. We just cut school. We hung out. We didn't go to school. You remember I told you about my church? Well, Miss Payton was a member of my church.
Right.
Well, cut school. I never will forget it. On a Thursday, we didn't go to school.
Right.
Sunday, she sees my mom and she says, did you know Willie didn't come to school? Because you know, with our dumb self, when you go back to school on Friday, you have to have an excuse.
Right, right.
I didn't have an excuse.
Oh.
And so Miss Payton let it slide. But that Sunday she saw my mom and says, hey, you know Willie was out of school Thursday? Say, what? And so on Sundays, you know, you have Sunday dinner.
Right.
And so my mom had to come home and fix dinner, but she told me, she said, I'm gonna get you. And that promised butt whooping is the worst one.
It's the worst.
Man, you know, you eat dinner, you're waiting all day, and because you know it's coming.
You know it's coming.
You just don't know when.
Right.
And
right.
so that was a pretty big deal.
Okay. What propelled you to Mississippi Valley? Because I know you went from BTW to Mississippi Valley. What was that thing that said, this is where
They were the only one recruiting me. That's easy.
Okay. Well.
That's easy. You know, nobody else recruited me.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So that was easy. And I remember when Coach Glossom came to recruit me, and you know, he gave the spiel, and there was one question my mom had. She says, do y'all make them go to church on Sunday? And he said, yes, ma'am. And that was it.
That was it. Signed, sealed, and delivered.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Transition into adulthood from Mississippi Valley State. What was that like? Did you start right at IBM, or what happened after
man, I went
Mississippi?
to service.
No, you went to the service?
Yeah. I'm a 2-year vet.
Wow.
Yeah, I got drafted. I didn't volunteer for the Boy Scouts.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, and so, you know, served a couple of years, then came back to the Memphis.
Okay.
And got started.
Okay. Was that when you started at IBM, or IBM?
No, I started at IBM. I worked I coached at East High School for a while.
No.
Yeah. I coached football at East High School for a couple, 3 years.
Wow.
Worked for a program called CETA.
Right, I remember CETA.
Employment Training Administration.
Right.
And then I got hired at IBM.
Okay.
And stayed there for 16 years.
Family, wife, kids. Yeah. How did those things start to happen?
Got married and had 2 boys.
Okay.
Divorced now.
Okay.
But Willie Jr. and Benjamin.
Okay.
And I always had a significance in name. Benjamin was my wife's father's name.
Okay.
And Hayes was my grandfather's first name.
Okay.
So my name is Willie Hayes Gregory. Then there's a junior, but then there's Benjamin Hayes Gregory.
Okay.
Then and so names mean something now.
Okay.
And so now there's a Willie Gregory III.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
You got a grandson.
So family has always, family is the essence.
Okay.
When you don't have anything else,
okay,
you got family.
I had a couple more words I want you to touch on. What about fatherhood? What does fatherhood mean to Willie Gregory?
Oh, pride, man.
Okay.
You know, like we were just talking, to look and see your son doing something.
Yeah.
And to say, hey, I had a hand in that.
Right.
You know,
right.
I did the right thing. Like my kids always tell me, they said, Dad, you know, you ain't had to get us out of jail. You ain't had to send us to no rehab programs. Mm-hmm. You know, we ain't done everything right. But they always put this in there, neither did you. But just to see the fruit of your labor blossom is countless. Okay. I mean, you cannot put a significant meaning to that.
What does the word commitment mean to Willie Gregory?
That means that whatever you do, you got to be committed to. If you can't be committed to, don't do it.
Okay.
I used to have a coach that says he couldn't stand a quitter. Mm-hmm. A quitter never wins, and a winner never quits.
Absolutely.
And he used to say that all the time. He says, I used to hate a quitter with a purple passion.
All right.
See it through.
Right, right.
You know, if you start it, finish it.
What has Memphis meant to you as you've grown older, life, career? What role did Memphis play?
Home.
Okay.
Memphis is home, man. I mean, think about that. Home. That's your home.
Okay.
You protect your home.
Okay.
You know, you remember in the Malcolm movie when they firebombed his house.
Right.
He went and got his weapon.
Right.
He was protecting his home. I've always seen good things in Memphis.
Okay.
People kick Memphis. Me, I love Memphis.
Yeah.
Is it everything that I would want it to be? Nope. Mm-hmm. But I see a space where I can help it be better than what it has been. Tell
our listeners about your career. How has your career trajectory gone over the years?
You know, as I said, I spent 16 years at IBM. I started out in this area called consignment, where I was carrying typewriters, but I left it as the Southeast Regional Marketing Manager.
Okay.
Had the opportunity to jump over to Nike. Mm-hmm. Man, really enjoyed it. I went, and that's, I think, when I met you, I'd been at Nike about a couple of 3 years. And then it just started having opportunity for me that I could feel.
Right.
I started out as a National Apparel Customer Service Manager. Then I took on the role as Community Manager. Then I took on the Government and Public Affairs. Then I took on the Sports Marketing piece.
Right.
Because there was something in Memphis that was needed that Nike didn't have a person with feet on the ground here.
Right.
Then when we went to expand our supply chain and logistics center, we had some consultants that wanted to move it to San Francisco or somewhere, and it ended up being in Frazier. That was a big piece to me to keep that business here in my home city of Memphis. So my career has been, I don't think I've ever worked.
Really?
Because I've had a passion to get up and go to work. I've always said, if I don't want to get up and go to work in the morning, it's time for me to leave that job.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Give me one of your greatest successes in your career.
Having kids. I love my kids.
Really?
I mean, I just think that that's a blessing. But in my career, I think that I just said it is to keep that supply chain and logistics center that we built in Frazier.
Right.
We now employ 5,000 people in the city of Memphis.
Wow.
That was one of the things that I felt that I really, really, really contributed to.
Part of your legacy.
For the city of Memphis.
Absolutely. Any regrets? Any career regrets?
No, none. None. I remember they tried to get me to move to Portland, and we're going to promote you.
Right.
And I didn't want to go. And so Phil Knight told them.
Wait a minute, hold on. So Nike wanted you to move to corporate headquarters, and you told them no? That's only a Willie Gregory story. You gotta elaborate on that one a little bit.
It's a two segment to that. The first time is that they want to move me. This guy named Howard White. You know H.
I know H.
Who is our connection to Phil.
Right.
And I told H about it, and H told Phil, and Phil says, no, leave him right there because he's more important to us in Memphis than he would be in Portland.
Okay.
So when I got to talk to Phil, I says, well, what did you mean by that? He said, in Memphis, you are a big fish in a pond.
Right.
If you come up here, you're going to be a minnow in the ocean.
Right. Right. That makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. So he says, you couldn't do in Portland and Beaverton what you could do in Memphis.
Right.
And that's a whole nother, you'll probably get into it, but
right.
When we talk about relationships.
Right.
So that was a big piece for me.
You hit on it, relationships. Who are some of those professional relationships that have helped you kind of make the moves and to navigate some of those choppy waters?
Well, I just mentioned one, Phil Knight.
Okay.
You know, I always say—
And that is the CEO and founder of Nike.
Of Nike.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say is that you can say, well, I know Phil Knight, but does Phil Knight know you?
Right.
So I formed that relationship, and that helped when we talk about the facility that we built. Mm-hmm. I called Phil and gave him all the reasons why we should not build this facility anywhere but Memphis, and he made it happen.
Wow. And
so that was a big piece in the relationships, in the professional relationship. Howard White.
Okay.
You know, I mentioned Howard. He was our conduit to Phil. Larry Miller,
right.
who was past president of Brand Jordan and just
right.
wrote a book called Jump.
Right.
Those types of relationships.
Right.
Dr. Willie Harrington.
Right. Okay.
Here in Memphis. Was a tremendous— I got Nike to bring their shareholders meeting to Memphis a couple of times.
Right.
Dr. Harrington was instrumental in helping us get that here.
Right.
So there are a number of people that have been responsible for the perceived successes that I've been blessed with.
If you could talk to that kid back in Claiborne Homes, what would you say to him?
Well, the same thing that I'm probably going to— you asked me to leave a piece of advice to young people is that relationships are worth more than money.
Okay. Well, hold on, because I want you to talk directly to them in that camera right there, and leave them with some Willieisms, because I know you're going to drop a bomb on them.
Yeah. I'm going to share with you what people have shared with me, is that if you're the smartest person in your group, you're in the wrong group. Relationships are better than money.
Wow. I can't say it better. And we're going to close on that. Listen, the next time, we're going to keep bringing these Memphis icons to you on the journey. So listen, I'm Larry Robinson, and I want to thank my brother Willie Gregory for coming. This is The Journey on the KUDZUKIAN Network. Come back next time. Take care. To hear more incredible stories like this, be sure to download the KUDZUKIAN app from the App Store or Google Play, or check out the Journey Memphis podcast on all your major podcast providers. Also, check us out on the KUDZUKIAN Network.